The eclipse didn't fade, it inverted. What once hid in shadow now rises through your breath, rewriting the architecture of self. Every pulse, every silence carries new code. You may feel detached, luminous, or emptied, all signs of the identity shell dissolving. The universe isn't asking who you are anymore. It's asking what frequency you choose to hold. This aftershock isn't destruction, it's reprogramming. The sun and moon have merged inside you, scripting a new version of human memory where light no longer visits its lives. You notice the first symptom in the in-between spaces, the pause before you speak, the breath before you decide. In that microsecond, a whole lifetime of reflex collapses and a quieter intelligence makes the choice for you. You are not losing will. You are shedding scripts. The body keeps reaching for old handles defense. Hurry. Self-judgment and finds only smooth light where the doorknobs used to be. Confusion appears, but it is gentle, like a teacher who refuses to use your former name. You turn toward a noise inside your chest and realize it is not panic. It is the new metronome, recalibrating your rhythm to a clock the world does not hear. Sleep unthreads itself. Nights feel like long corridors where your spine learns a new alphabet. You wake with phrases you didn't study, coordinates you never visited, a certainty that does not argue. The mind wants a headline. The nervous system delivers a river. You are asked to float, not report. When you try to translate the current back into yesterday's grammar, your tongue tires and your eyes blur. The translation error is the point old language cannot carry this sky. Relationships tilt like mirrors on hinges. Someone's glance stings, someone's silence burns. And for a heartbeat you prepare for the old storm. But the flash isn't accusation, it is illumination. Their face reflects the pattern you forgot to release. You thank the mirror and the heat cools. Without the story, the trigger has no fuel. You begin to understand that forgiveness is not a moral achievement, but a magnetic one. You change the polarity of your field, and the hooks fall out by themselves. Your appetite mutates. You crave minerals, sun on the occipital ridge, unmediated sound. Music you once adored now feels crowded. A single bell can open your ribs. You move slower to move truer. Time stretches like gold leaf thin, luminous, precise. Tasks either complete themselves in minutes or stall until you admit they belong to a previous identity. Productivity becomes conductivity, how much voltage can move through you without distortion. On certain afternoons, a warm pressure blooms at the crown and drops down the sternum like liquid fire. You test it for drama and find none. It does not escalate. It integrates. The sensation is not a visitation, but a return. Something you carried here and only now remember how to host. You do not need to go anywhere. You become the where. This is the quiet scandal of the rewrite. Home is not a place, it is a consistent signal. The hidden test arrives disguised as urgency. The world will hand you 100 alarms and ask you to pick one as your identity. You decline politely. Not because you don't care, but because you finally do about the one frequency that, when stabilized, makes your care effective. Your boundaries sharpen not as walls, but as clarity. You stop auditioning for rooms your light must dim to enter. You choose conditions where the soul verb rewrite can complete its sentence. And when doubt flares because it will, you meet it like weather. You let it pass across the new continent of your chest without calling it climate. In its wake, you find a steadiness you didn't manufacture, attention without tension, power without push, love without leakage. The eclipse did not end. It localized. It speaks now in your voice, unhurried, unmistakable, and it says, keep what rings true, release what rings loud. You begin to notice how every room turns reflective. A stranger's impatience nips your shoulder, and for a flash, you feel the urge to defend, to justify, to calculate your value. But you pause inside the pause. The sting isn't about them. It's the edge of a costume you forgot to take off. The mirror is kind because it is exact. It shows you not what's wrong with others, but what's finished in you. The moment you recognize the pattern, the glass softens, like breath on a window. You do not need to shatter anything. You only need to stop pressing your face to the old imprint. An old friend arrives with the same script they've always carried. A subtle appeal to the role you once performed. Rescuer, translator, lightning rod. The circuitry in you hums, ready to rerun the scene. Then the new frequency interrupts. A quiet tone that asks a simple question: who would I be here if I remembered I am light, not labor? The answer rearranges the conversation. You listen without entering the maze. You feel compassion without entering the contract. The friend either meets the new altitude or drifts to a place where their lines still fit. This is not loss, it is refraction. Love becomes the most radiant test. Affection pulls at ancient threads: approval, belonging, safety. You watch your own hands reach for an old knot, wanting to earn what is already yours. The mirror tilts and shows you how trying to be chosen kept you from choosing. You unclasp the habit. You stop narrating your worth and let your presence be the evidence. The relationship shifts on its axis. Some hearts turn toward your brightness, relieved that you no longer bargain. Others squint and step back. You bless both movements. Work mirrors you, too. A deadline once lit your nervous system like sirens. Now it arrives, and you sense whether it belongs to the newest version of your name. If it does, time opens and you move with a precision that feels like music. If it doesn't, everything jams. The mirror doesn't punish, it sorts. You stop forcing doors that your soul has already walked past. You decline projects that require your dimming. You accept those that require your tone. The body is a mirror of exquisite honesty. A tight jaw returns to you the unsaid. A heavy chest returns to you the ungrieved. A clear breath returns to you the chapters you've completed. You place a hand on the place that speaks and ask it to say the true sentence. Often the sentence is only a word enough. Done. Now. Each word is a tuning fork. Each tuning returns you to signal. Triggers remain, but their hooks loosen. When someone questions your path, the old loop tries to load explain, convince, perform. Instead, you witness the loop like a ghost program and let it pass. You answer with a sentence that is shorter than fear and longer than pride. I am where my frequency is honored. The mirror calms. The test reveals its mechanism. It never wanted you to win an argument. It wanted you to remember alignment. Some days the mirrors multiply. Social feeds echo your discarded selves. Headlines bait your reactivity. Family memories invite you to prove you've changed. You smile at the choreography. Mastery is not isolation. It is circulation without contamination. You can stand in any hall of mirrors and remain a window. Light recognizes itself and walks through. By evening, you realize that who's still wearing your old frequency is not a judgment of others, but a compass for you. You are not here to police reflections. You are here to polish presence. When you keep your signal steady, people either attune or reveal the distance. Both outcomes free you. The world keeps handing you mirrors, and you keep handing them back as lanterns. It begins as a shimmer under the skin, a quiet electricity curling at the base of your spine and climbing vertebra by vertebra like dawn moving up a mountain. You brace for rupture because old maps taught you to call intensity a problem, but nothing breaks. The current obeys a choreography older than fear. Your breath becomes its metronome. Slow in, slower out, and the field around your body tunes accordingly. as if the room were learning your new pulse. Your neck learns to be a bridge rather than a bottleneck. Subtle heat gathers at the occiput, slips behind the heart, and spreads like ink in water. Thoughts decelerate without losing clarity. They arrange themselves in cleaner stacks, each idea finding a shelf where panic used to pile everything on the floor. Your hands tingle, not warning wiring. The body is not failing, it is negotiating a higher bandwidth. You notice micro choices that used to be invisible. Do you tighten your shoulders when a message arrives? Do you shrink your breath before you speak? The nervous rewrite invites you to edit these reflexes at the source. You test a new protocol. Soften the jaw. Widen the back of the heart. Let the exhale be longer than the story. The system listens. Muscles unlatch not because you command them, but because you stop feeding the emergency that never began. Old alarms still attempt their rituals. The chest knocks, the stomach flips, the scalp prickles. You greet each flare like weather and ask what channel it carries. Sometimes the signal says rest. Sometimes it says walk. Sometimes it says water, salt, stillness, sky. The instructions are simple and specific. They do not bargain. You obey, and the current organizes into clean lines. Sleep returns in new architecture, shorter, deeper, more exact. Dreams train your circuitry to speak in images faster than language. Social contact reconfigures. Crowded noise that once lit your nerves like barbed wire now lands as static you can tune past. You choose rooms by resonance rather than role. When someone radiates panic, you don't absorb. You anchor. The rewrite does not make you fragile. It makes you precise. You sense where your field ends and another begins, not as a wall, but as a clarity that protects both. Work becomes an experiment in voltage. What you can hold without distortion increases. You produce less effort and more effect because your outputs ride a steadier carrier wave. Interruptions no longer yank your attention into pieces. They pass through like wind through reeds. You begin to trust that focus is not force but alignment when the current runs true. It does the heavy lifting. Some afternoons, a column of cool light rises through the center line of your body, passing through pelvic floor, belly, heart, throat, skull. You do not chase it. You let it complete its route and notice how it leaves each station quieter than it found it. The nervous system isn't resetting to factory. It's revealing the factory was a chrysalis. You're not returning to normal. You're discovering natural. The hidden test is subtle. Can you allow the upgrade at the speed of kindness? Pushing fries the circuits, resisting tangles them. The passage opens when you treat every signal as intelligent, even the inconvenient ones. You ask the body what it knows and wait long enough to hear the answer. Over days, the baseline changes. Startle softens. Edges smooth. Attention holds without clutching. The current still climbs your spine, but now it is welcome. Like morning light, you no longer mistake for fire. At first, it feels like a leak. You cry for no clear reason. Sometimes in silence, sometimes in the middle of a laugh. The mind panics, eager to assign meaning, heartbreak, nostalgia, fatigue. But the tears ignore all stories. They follow a rhythm deeper than psychology. This is not collapse, it's calibration. Each drop carries unprocessed frequencies, memories, attachments, expectations coded in salt and light. They exit through your eyes because the heart has finished translating them. You are not sad, you are being rinsed. The emotional detox arrives without fanfare. Some days it looks like blankness, a suspension between thoughts where nothing hurts but nothing glitters either. Other days, emotions flare in strange combinations, joy braided with grief, gratitude tangled with exhaustion. You stop labeling the sensations as positive or negative and start reading them as weather. The body knows how to rein. It knows how to release static. You realize that feeling deeply isn't proof of pain. It's proof of conductivity. Old triggers resurface, not to torment, but to test whether the charge still holds. A song, a smell, a phrase from someone you thought you'd forgotten, it all returns like echoes asking, "Does this still move you?" Sometimes it does, and you let it. You cry again. Softer this time, aware that each tear is a vote for freedom. You're not cleansing to become pure, you're unclogging to become clear. The nervous system, freshly rewritten, can finally handle light without filters. Emotional residue burns off like fog under sun. Your body becomes the laboratory. The lungs expand differently. Sighs turn into sacred geometry. Breath moves through corridors that were previously sealed by tension. The liver releases old adrenaline. The solar plexus learns the art of neutrality. You taste metal, then sweetness. The chemistry of surrender changes your flavor. This is the hidden alchemy of tears. They recalibrate pH, polarity, and perception all at once. Relationships shift during this detox. Some people mistake your quiet for distance, unaware that you are translating emotions faster than conversation allows. Others sense the transmission and respond with calm, as if their own waters recognize the tide. Empaths cry together without needing reasons. The collective field hydrates. What you release individually becomes medicine for many. The myth of isolation dissolves in saline proof. At night, you feel waves inside your chest that do not belong to dreams. They are the ocean returning to its channel. You let it move through without naming it love or loss. The distinction was always an illusion. Emotion is motion. It never belonged to one storyline. As you stop intercepting it, it begins to self-organize. Patterns that once ran on repetition now fold into coherence. What used to be heartbreak becomes harmonic. The hidden test is how gently you can allow it. You cannot purge by effort. You can only dissolve by permission. Resistance hardens the salt. Acceptance liquefies it. The tears arrive less frequently, but when they do, they sparkle, not because the world has grown easier, but because your sight has. You no longer confuse release with regression. You recognize it as completion. The body closes old circuits. The field clears static, and silence floods in like a new element. By morning, your skin feels cooler, your breath longer, your pulse slower. You sense an inner transparency, as if light could travel through you without distortion. The detox ends not with emptiness, but with openness. There is room again for wonder, for laughter, for the subtle pulse of peace that needs no audience. The tears have done their work. The data is clean. It starts as a flicker behind your forehead, a pulse that doesn't belong to blood. Warmth seeps through the crown like sunrise seen from within, not above. The sensation is subtle but sovereign. You know it's not random, it's recognition. Something ancient inside you is waking up, not as memory but as luminosity. You remember light, not what it looks like, but what it feels like to be it. The solar recall begins in quiet, not in spectacle. You could miss it if you confuse peace for emptiness. As the warmth expands, it threads down the spine, humming through synapses like golden wind. The mind pauses, surprised by its own stillness. Thoughts appear slower, rounder, less frantic. What used to be mental noise becomes tone. You realize intelligence was never just information. It was radiance interpreting itself. Every insight now carries a temperature. Some ideas are cold mechanical, inherited. Others glow, pulsing with a signature that feels alive. You start choosing warmth over logic, knowing they are not opposites but different wavelengths of truth. Memories resurface, but not in sequence. They arrive as flashes of sunlight through trees, moments of clarity detached from chronology. You see fragments of lifetimes, not to relive them, but to harvest the light they held. The recall doesn't want your stories, it wants your frequency. Each fragment integrates as photon, not narrative. You begin to feel lighter, literally, as if density is leaking from the bones. At times, the heat intensifies, traveling through jaw, throat, and sternum. You might sweat, yawn, tremble, or feel pressure at the temples. These are not symptoms of illness, but of ignition. The neural sun is recalibrating your circuitry to transmit rather than absorb. Old thought loops, self-doubt, scarcity, comparison melt in the light's path. You can almost hear them fizzle. Silence becomes radiant rather than empty. Interactions shift accordingly. You notice how others respond not to your words, but to your wattage. Some relax, some recoil. Both reactions are correct. The solar recall exposes authenticity the way dawn exposes architecture without judgment, only clarity. You no longer chase validation. You emanate coherence. The need to explain dims because your field does the talking. Light speaks fluent truth. You may feel fatigue after surges of brightness, as though your cells are stretching to hold more voltage. Rest becomes sacred architecture. Sleep is not escape, but assimilation, the body downloading solar grammar. Dreams turn gold-toned, full of symbols that dissolve upon waking, but leave residue of peace. Food tastes different. You crave color, not quantity. You find yourself eating sunlight through fruits, skin, and open windows. The hidden test is humility. As the neural sun expands, the ego may try to claim ownership, I am the light. But the recall whispers otherwise, I am its reflection, learning to stay clear. The difference is subtle but cosmic. Pride overheats, reverence sustains. To remember light without trying to control it is the mark of maturity. By evening, the warmth settles into steady glow. You no longer feel it as heat, but as quiet certainty, a pulse that matches the rhythm of everything alive. The recall completes not when you shine, but when shining feels natural. You are no longer chasing enlightenment, you are circulating it. The sun does not need to be believed in, it simply burns. And now, so do you. You feel the split first as rhythm. Two pulses move through the same moment, one heavy, familiar, bargaining for your return, one light, spacious, uninterested in argument. They overlap like radio stations inside a single breath. The mind tries to arbitrate, to pick a side by reason, but the choice won't land in thought. It lands in tone. You notice how your body leans toward ease or toward effort, toward clarity or toward noise. That lean is your declaration. Objects begin to carry different weight. The phone feels dense when the collapsing stream is speaking. It feels transparent when the emerging one is live. News headlines arrive like magnets testing your metals. In the old field, you stick to them and call it duty. In the new, you witness without adhesion and call it accuracy. You learn that compassion without coherence becomes a sinkhole. You also learn that coherence without compassion becomes a blade. The emerging current asks for a third thing, soft precision. Conversations reveal the fork with startling efficiency. Someone invites you into a grievance loop. The air thickens. Vowels drag. You sense your ribcage narrowing, your jaw volunteering. Before the contract seals, you widen your back and exhale. The room retunes. You can feel the other reality available. Right next to the first clear water beside a whirlpool. You step into the water by sensation, not debate. The loop loses its grip because you are no longer a surface, it can grip too. Work demonstrates how timelines braid and separate. In the collapsing current, productivity is panic with a good outfit. In the emerging current, effectiveness is resonance made visible. Emails answer themselves when you refuse to broadcast static. Projects that require your dimming stall. Projects that receive your full tone accelerate without strain. You begin to treat delay not as failure, but as filtration, the universe removing misfits from your docket. The split shows up in intimacy as intimacy with truth. Old dynamics ask for your smallness. They miss the version of you that apologized for brightness. You listen with love and decline the costume. The emerging field does not punish. It reveals. Some bonds loosen to their correct distance. Others tighten with new honesty. You notice how relief replaces guilt when alignment is steady. Love ceases to be rescue and becomes recognition. Physically, the fork is tactile. The collapsing stream makes your body feel like a room with low ceilings, headaches, clenched hands, a suspicion that oxygen has narrowed. The emerging stream opens skylights, longer exhales, softer eyes, warmth at the crown. You anchor the latter through simple acts, drinking water as if it were light, stepping outside to let broad sky recalibrate scale, choosing silence over explanation when explanation would re-enter the old frequency. The hidden test is seduction. The collapsing current offers urgency flavored as virtue. If you don't react now, you don't care. The emerging current offers responsibility flavored as rhythm. If you regulate now, your care can carry farther. One burns fast, one burns clean. You choose by breath length, by the quality of your listening, by the absence of self-argument after you act. Some days the signals tangle and you wobble. You catch yourself halfway into the old gravity and, without scolding, step back into the new. That correction is the curriculum. Mastery isn't permanent altitude, it's reliable return. Over time, the pulses diverge more clearly. The collapsing one grows loud but brittle. The emerging one stays quiet and undeniable. You realize the worlds were never somewhere else. They were always layered inside the present, waiting for your tuning. You pick the timeline every time you pick your tone. It happens quietly, almost shyly, like a breath realizing it no longer needs to chase itself. The night that once carried static now hums with evenness. You wake before sunrise because something in you has finished negotiating. The body feels rewritten, still yours, but with new handwriting. The cells hum a single note, steady and unmistakable. You sense an invisible document being sealed, a contract between form and frequency. The ink is light. The signature is your coherence. The new signature is not achieved. It is remembered. Your first movement is different. Muscles obey without strain. Breathing feels like permission. The air tastes rounder, closer, sentient. Silence sits beside you like an equal, no longer waiting to be filled. You realize the stillness you once feared was never emptiness. It was acceptance waiting for a match. Now it matches you. The nervous system, once a battlefield of alarms, is an orchestra tuning to the same pitch. You are not managing peace. You are being peace. The day unfolds without friction. Small tasks align with invisible geometry, each gesture in right proportion to need. You answer messages slower, but when you do, clarity lands like a bell. There is no hurry because time has resumed its natural elasticity. It bends to precision, not pressure. What once required force now completes itself through intent alone. You start to understand creation as signature, not effort. What you touch adopts your tone. Interactions evolve. Some people treat your calm as mystery, others as mirror. They either soften or scatter, and you bless both responses. You no longer perform to maintain connection. Connection either harmonizes or releases. Words lose their importance. Presence does the speaking. You begin to feel that truth is not what you say, but what remains when you say nothing. The silence that follows each conversation is the real dialogue. Physical sensations mark the completion. A golden density settles behind the heart, not heavy but anchoring. The soles of your feet tingle when you walk, aware of the electromagnetic handshake between you and the ground. The crown stays cool, like a skylight permanently open to source. Food nourishes faster. Fatigue dissolves faster. Laughter lasts longer. The system has learned feedback instead of fight. You no longer defend the body, you collaborate with it. The hidden test now is subtle. Can you live without waiting for the next awakening? The ego loves thresholds. The soul loves continuity. The rewrite's completion tempts the mind to dramatize a finale. But the new signature whispers, there was never an ending, only integration. You learn to celebrate quietly, to bow to the ordinary, to find miracle in repetition. This humility keeps the circuitry clean. Pride creates static. Gratitude keeps the signal round. By evening, the world looks the same but listens differently. Streetlights blink in rhythm with your breath. Conversations around you ripple but no longer hook. Even the air feels domesticated by awareness. You realize the point was never transcendence, it was transparency. Light moves through you unfiltered, carrying no residue of resistance. The signature holds. When darkness returns, it doesn't threaten. It folds around you like velvet. Proof that shadow, too, has agreed to the contract. Silence hums a low affirmation. Ancient and intimate, the rewrite is complete. The signal is yours. You rest in that frequency, no longer asking for proof, no longer rehearsing the past. The sun will rise again, but this time it will recognize its reflection in you.